Hello, welcome back to Get to Know World of Warships, a short podcast hosted by Boggzy and Synpax, produced by TNG the New Guys. Synpax, what's
Something
up?
something sounds different there.
Something is different. What's different?
Well, nice things about podcasts, specifically this one, is we can do whatever we want. And for a long time, we've been taking our liberties with that privilege and talking to folks about, what ships are strong or how to play them, or talking to prominent streamers or wargaming employers or former employees. And, you know, we still love talking to clans, particularly clans with something a little weird about them, a little bit different that makes them special. The anthropological study that prompted uh, the start of this podcast, but we're diversifying. So we're going to start doing new and different segments like get to know a ship, get to know a streamer, and stacking these into individual episodes. And we'll always have an interest in doing get to know a clan. But I think the new title will give us just a little bit broader scope, at least more on label, more as advertised.
Yeah, I mean, without moving fully into the realm of like a news podcast, because I don't think that's ever what we have wanted to do or what we want to do in the
It's
future.
too much
We've
work,
way
too
too much
hard.
work. We've just
Standards. Who's got
we
time for that?
we're not journalists. We're just fanboys of the game, and at its core, that's what we want to do. And we don't want to limit our own interests to just clans, because we, quite frankly, somewhere between I think like episode 15 and 25, we started to diversify a little bit by having some of the clans on to talk about, like for example, the the clan battle leaders of each season. We brought on '07, we brought on the European, the SEA servers, and it was fun, and people responded really well to it. And then we brought on the CV mains, and then we brought on people to talk about specific ships. We brought on data miners, and people responded with, "That was really cool. Why don't you guys do more of that sort of stuff?" So we're going to take a little editorial privilege, and we're going to broaden it a little bit so that we can keep bringing you guys fun stuff that you might not have thought about when it comes to World of Warships.
Yeah, and it sort of keeps it interesting for us because as much as we like the audience, at least speaking for myself, I kind of talk about what I want to talk about. And so one thing that crossed the transom, which we will link below, is somebody did a beautiful distribution chart showing the ship distribution in the latest season of Clan Battles, Tier 6. Well, there's never been a Tier 6 season of Clan Battles. For those who are veterans of the game may remember Team Battles, the precursor that did occur at Tier 6, but this is all kind of fresh and new, and it just this chart shows you the basically what ships people are taking and breaks it down by class: destroyer, cruiser, battleship, aircraft carrier, and breaks down each of those classes into the most popular ships among them. Bogsy, having looked at this chart, what's your takeaway from it? What does this chart say to you?
Oh, well, you and I have actually looked at different charts then. The chart that I saw was the one from the pre CV clan battle, which was season 8, I think. That's the one I saw.
Well, let me give you the link, and while you look at it, I will just give you my initial read on this.
That's
Um,
the TNG equivalent of a slap on the wrist.
oh no 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 no! I'm very polite. It's on the
I
face, man. Make it count.
hear you.
Um,
Oh, man.
backhanded. What do they call that?
Jesus.
I can't remember.
It's called a
Maybe
pimp slap.
is it backhanded? I
Yeah,
thought it
we're
was.
really pushing the
There's a word that
creative
I can't
license
use. Yeah, we don't want to get fined by the FEC again. Uh,
again.
so one noteworthy thing is that there's a tremendous amount of diversity. Now, 28% or 29% of the ships being brought to clan battles currently are Graf Space. Okay, fine.
Ugh.
But everyone was given one for free, so it's a ship everyone has. It's a premium, so it's easy to move a captain to it, and it's a pretty strong boat. But what also strikes me is just the tremendous diversity in the cruisers, the diversity in, for the most part, the destroyers, the diversity in the battleships, um, and the fact that there are more battleships being brought than aircraft carriers. Now,
Carriers, yeah, that's the first thing that caught my eye right there. There's 7.66% of the games played include a battleship, and 6.49% include carriers. That's not an insignificant difference.
yeah, yeah, and it's worth remembering here is that this is for all clan battles. These are ones occurring at Squall, at
Right.
Gale, Storm, Typhoon, and now at least one or so clans have broached Hurricane. Um, So, different levels of it, you probably see different things happening. But, I will tell you, I know from my experience, first of all, that the number one clan currently rated is running a battleship. The number two clan is running a CV. So it's not as if people like to use the word meta. The meta demands one or the other, which
Right.
actually wasn't even the case last season either, because the number one clan was running a CV, the number two clan was running a battleship. So,
Yep. A lot of it comes down to how you and your clan are able to make sense of what you are struggling with the most and figure out a way of dealing with it.
yeah, and you know what else is interesting to me is you look at the destroyer selection. T61 has more than maybe the next three or four combined. But I also happen to know that the number two clan on NA is running a very rare choice, which you almost never see, which is a Monahan.
Yeah.
And another, the super rare cruiser, which is Tech Tree, is Dallas. So even these ships that are not perceived as being used, they're not being used very much overall. In the right combination, it can be pretty dominant, pretty powerful. So
Yeah. One of the things I've found most fascinating about this has been watching each each clan and each, or especially if you're a large clan like KSC or like TNG, for example, us, there's enough players and enough different groups running each night that everyone's going to be trying something different,
mhm.
which is a lot of fun. So, for example, the crew that I'm running with is actually running the Fusion as a destroyer, which is in the 0.25% of games played. So it's just the tiniest little sliver down there, but we've really enjoyed it because of its hard hitting power with deep water torps. You know, uh,
Right,
and
yeah,
that means something
right.
when you smack a Graf Spay with it. So
In fact,
it's
uh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just wrapping up with that. As you go through the games, and especially as you start hitting that 50 game mark, I think that we all start figuring out, hey, the optimizing process takes over, and we go, hey, it would be worth it more to just have harder hitting torpedoes rather than more frequent torpedoes, or that little bit of extra concealment or what have you is worth more than hydroacoustic search.
Right,
Until you start running up against something that directly counters you, which is how the game should be played. In my opinion.
right. So, coming from a background of game theory optimization, you're always sort of looking for the most optimal solution for what your composition should be. And because there's so much variety among the tier 6 ships, it may, in theory, not actually exist. There may not be a game theory optimized solution, or there are two that are very close, or maybe it's split three different ways. In TNG, as you sort of alluded to this, we have seven different crews running. We're soon to have an eighth crew running. They're all doing radically different things. The crew I'm in actually is also running a Fusion, but we took it for different reasons. We took it because of the way the smokes work, which is just the time you need to get a couple cruisers turned around if you're smoking them up, good enough to take a cap and they come up faster, say, than the UK smokes, because we initially tried running with Icarus. But the other thing about that ship is that while it is Pan-Asian, it is in its heart of hearts Russian, and the ballistics on the guns, particularly on a broadside cruiser when you're using AP, I mean, you hit stuff consistently in ways you don't with, say, a Farragut or an Icarus. And it's oftentimes when you're bringing a destroyer, you're basically downgrading your DPM, effective DPM. But with the Fushan, that's not the case. And you're right. Occasionally, you really wreck somebody with those torps. So it's just good to see so much diversity. And maybe at the end of the season, everybody, at least at the top end, will be running the same thing, but maybe not. So there's just a lot of synergies between these ships that play out in a way that I guess we didn't see quite as much during the last season clan battles, where it was basically Venezia plus
Right.
Stalingrad, and um,
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's nice to see that. I'm sure many of our listeners are the same way, but I'm absolutely sick and tired of playing a Graf Spee. But it has been nice to see other ships that are functioning. We've run up against comps that are essentially like a Perth and a Dallas for each side, with another smoking destroyer out in front.
hmm
And basically each one of these, they just leapfrog each other, and they consistently keep up smoke. And the Dallas DPM is nuts when it's consistently protected by smoke.
Right.
And especially if you haven't figured out if you haven't encountered that yet, it's frustrating and exciting because it's like, oh, good, it's not another Graf Spee lineup. It's not a wall of German steel. But I think that our listeners might appreciate this specifically because I had somebody, I forget who it was. I think it was our filthy CV main Oscons, who has plenty of accolades of his own, was the one who pointed out to me a discrepancy in the way the Graf Spee's guns fire. And the discrepancy is that because I think everyone can understand that the Graf Spee has relatively poor accuracy in practice. It may be decent now that it has a battlecruiser dispersion buff, but when you're firing it, it just feels like the shells are going all over the place. And I found out why. Part of the reason is because when you, say, fire both guns together or in a continuous volley, the game essentially checks to put the shells in a specific spot that is equidistant from the rear and the main turret, rear and the front turret. So what it does is it oftentimes will split the difference, and your shells can simultaneously land behind and in front of your target, which seems impossible. But because of the way the Graf Spee is set up, oftentimes, especially if you're angled, and you should be, what'll happen is it will not put the shells in the same place. So what he suggested to me, which is something I've seen people do, and I have never done it before because it was too much work, if you fire your first gun where it should go, then you hit C once while you're, this all has to happen while you're aimed, while you're looking down the sights aimed, you hit C, it will adjust to the rear turret, and you'll even see the change. You'll see, oh my God, that turret would not have fired anywhere near where I thought it was going to. You can manually aim each of the two turrets, and your accuracy will go up considerably in terms of where the shells land, either in front, before, or on top of your target. I highly encourage people to try practicing that even in co-ops if you need to test it.
That's worth the price of the podcast there, that bit of information. I would also actually add that that is true for any ship where there's particular distance between the guns, like real distance, like on a battleship. So, but yeah, especially since there's basically two guns and they're relatively far apart, taking advantage of that on a Graf Spee will make a significant difference. It's not that hard once you get in the habit of it, and anybody that has done priority target spoofing, it's just a little bit more of a little bit of finesse, but it's not that hard to master. So listen, we in the spirit of our new name, we're going to do a segment after commercial break with a very strong player in a particular ship. And this is going to be, I guess, technically maybe the second or third we've done of these, but this is a get to know a ship. And the ship we're going to get to know is Lo Yang, which maybe you've been seeing it a lot lately, partially because it is a ranked season, a tier 8 ranked season. And we're going to have one of the top players in that ship come on and tell you how he's been making it work and hopefully give you some advice on how you can make it work for you. With that, you want to take us to break, Boggzy?
Yeah, there's nobody to sink a ship, but hey, we're gonna get to know a ship instead, which I'm excited about. So hang with us here. By the way, Synpax, I want to point out where we're ending and going to break right now is where you and I had originally intended our entire podcast to end.
Yeah, are we gonna keep with calling it a short podcast, or is that?
No.
Maybe it's just our little joke.
Maybe it is. At this point, it is a joke in and of itself. So. Whenever I feel like a yuck, it's going to be a short podcast. But anyway, so stick with us, guys. We're going to come back with IK Blitz. He's our own homegrown hero, IK Blitz, who's going to teach us exactly what we're doing wrong in the Lo Yang when we come back on Get to Know World of Warships. Welcome back to Get to Know World of Warships. I love saying it. It feels so good. So we are here. We're back. We're talking with our own IKX Blitz, not IK Blitz. I don't even know my best friend's name. That's ridiculous. He's going to teach us how to Lo Yang, and no, that is not a new dance that's happening on TikTok or whatever the other stupid platforms are out there. Lo Yang, the old but delicious Pan-American Pan-Asian destroyer. But first, Apex, you have something you want to say, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Funny ship. When I first started playing, it was about the time the Lo Yang initially came out, and not knowing what I was doing, but wanting to play a cool ship, I just went ahead and bought it. And I didn't know what I was doing, period, to begin with. I certainly I didn't even know what hydroacoustic search was. And I was so frustrated with that ship. I was just so angry about it. I said, "Oh, screw it," and I just sold it. Fortunately, later on, when I sort of figured out, oh, that's what that is. That's how this is supposed to work. We all go through that phase, that first 1,000 games or so. Maybe less for some people, maybe more, maybe never for some. Um, I realized it, and I reversed the port action, and it is one of my favorite go-to tier 8 destroyers. There's just a few that are in that class that are, especially this ranked season, that are particularly strong. Definitely put the Kid in that category, maybe the Cossack, but the Loyang, um, tough to beat that Hydro Smoke gimmick. Bogsy, why don't you get IKX here so he can straighten us all out on how to play that
Okay.
ship correctly?
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. One of the biggest strengths of this little destroyer is the fact that it has an incredible hydroacoustic search along with smoke. So it's not as easy as it sounds, though. And to help us learn the ins and outs of the Loyang, we have IKX Blitz from our very own TNG. What's up, Blitz?
Nothing much. How are you, Bogsy?
Very good. Thank you for being here and helping us learn how to meme Yang. So, why don't you just give us a quick overview on how the person listening who's never played the Lil Yang, how should they interpret this fantastic ship?
So the Loyang is a very, very strong tier 8 DD. It has 5.8 concealment. It has 5.5 hydro. It has American smoke, which lasts 2 minutes. It has 2.3 AA detection range or DV detection range, air spotting,
Right.
and it has fairly decent AA. It's mediocre, but it's good enough, right? And depending on how you spec the ship, it can have insanely strong torpedoes, and it has pretty good DPM, but not the best. So you gotta give a little bit there, but it's still pretty good.
Right. So one of the things you were saying is about the hard hitting torpedoes. Now, there's a very distinct cultural chasm between the standard torpedoes, which, correct me if I'm wrong, are 9.2 kilometers, and the manned torpedoes, which are 6.7 kilometers, correct?
Yes.
Now,
So
you and I are both proponents of the 6.7 torpedoes. Now, can you please explain to us why?
well, the 9.2 kilometer torpedoes, they are very, very slow. They go 55 knots and only do 11,000 damage, 11,600. But they reload about 13 seconds faster, about 109 seconds. But the problem with that is that when you're firing at them at battleships and anything that has a significant torpedo bulge, you're only going to do like 5,000 damage, maybe 8,000 damage to those battleships. Whereas the man torpedoes, the 6.7s, they go 68 knots and do 16,633 damage per torpedo, and you have 10 of them. It makes them a nightmare for anything that's pushing your smoke or anything that's pushing in general into your concealment. And you can surprise a lot of people because they are really, really fast torpedoes.
Yeah, it's difficult to miss with torpedoes that go 68 knots and have to be fired within 6.7 kilometers.
Yep, it doesn't give a lot of lead time.
And there are 10 of them too. It's two racks of five, correct?
Yep, there
Yeah.
are. And
It's
the detectability is about 1.4 kilometers, so you see them and they're going to be right on top of you really quick.
very difficult to dodge, right? So the thing about the Lo Yang, as you've mentioned to me before, that gives it its enormous strength is the hydro and its ability to bully cap zones, especially the small cap zones that we see in ranked, as
Yep.
well as push into other destroyers that are trying to sit in smoke. So, can you give us a little bit of a understanding about the right way to Lo Yang, and then the wrong way to Lo Yang, like you saw me do this morning?
Okay. So when I play the Luoyang in ranked or in any random battle or anything like that, I always tend to try to go for a cap that I know I'm going to have some support in, and that I can utilize my hydro, and that I can get near an island and just sit there and wait for something to attempt to come into the cap. As soon as that thing comes into the cap, I can hydro it, and it's immediately detected because my detection range on my hydro is 5.5 kilometers, and that is around the size of many cap circles, especially if you're in the cap circle. Like if you're on the edge, some of them are a little bit like 6 kilometers, 7 kilometer diameter, but the 5.5 kilometers, it gives you a real distinct advantage when you're going after those caps. And as soon as a DD crosses that line, or anything that matter crosses that line, they're gonna get spotted because you're gonna have that hydro ready to go. And that's very important that you keep that hydro ready to go, because if you're caught without it, it can be a detriment to you. And the smoke just allows you to basically bully anything that's trying to push you, because then they can't see you and you can see them, so you just get free damage on them, and pretty efficient damage on them, if I might add.
Right. So, for example, you're not going to win a straight up gunfight with an Akazuki, a Cossack, a Lightning, something that is built for gunboats, but that's where the smoke and the hydro comes into play, right?
Exactly. So the Aki is very sluggish, and if it's caught within 5.5 of you and you have smoke and hydro ready, you can bet your ass I'm gonna be winning that battle, because it's so powerful. And unless they can smoke fire you effectively while you're maneuvering in your smoke, it's lights out for them, because it just tears things up with its smoke hydro combo.
Right, right, right. So, just to give the listeners some idea of how to approach this, let's say you're taking a flank, and you come head on against an Akazuki. You spot the Akazuki at 6'1" or 5'8" or something like that, or you're 5'8", so
Yes.
you see the Akazuki first, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that before you can disappear, you two are gonna run into each other's concealment areas. So there's
Yes.
gonna be a gunfight. What happens
Yes.
first for you?
So I will try to push into the 5.5. If I push into the 5.5, I will immediately have my smoke ready to go, and then try to utilize that. I will take damage. You will take damage, but it's okay, because if you set up your commander correctly, you have adrenaline rush, so you get even more DPM. But you get your smoke ready and you get your hydro ready, and as soon as you get in that 5.5, pop your hydro and then pop your smoke. As soon as that happens, you're gonna be close enough to the Akizuki where as soon as you go undetected, you will have at least a kilometer or a kilometer and a half before he can get out of your hydro range, where you can tear him up, do at least 10,000 damage to him, if not straight up kill him if they keep pushing you. So it is very, very, very effective to just surprise anything, because you out conceal them, so you can get the drop on them. And if you know their last known position, I would highly recommend, as soon as your hydro range exceeds their last known, pop it just in case. And
That's good
then
advice.
if you get them, pop your smoke if they're not in smoke, and then just tear them up. It is absolutely absurd how much damage you can do to them in such little time, when they're frantically trying to get away from your hydro range, because they're like, oh my god, what do I do now? Where do I go? And
Right.
a lot of them will try to smoke fire you if they can get their guns around, if they're pointed the right way and anything. But if you keep moving in your smoke and angling different ways in your smoke, it won't be as effective as you might think. You will get hit, but you won't get hit as effective as you're hitting them. Right? That's the key. You dish out more to them in that period of time than they can dish out to you.
So obviously, when it comes to bullying another destroyer, the critical place to be is safely between the boundaries of your 5.5 kilometer hydro range, which guarantees spotting them even if they're hidden in smoke, and then the 2.7 kilometer smoke firing penalty of your own guns. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. So you have that 5.5 to 2.7 kilometer window if they're pushing you to do a lot of damage. And if it's something like a lightning or a Cossack that have 3 or 3.5 kilometer hydro, then you have that lead time just goes down a little bit, but you'll still be able to do enough damage. And if it is a lightning or a Cossack pushing you, you can get away from that before they hydro you, and you can keep them spotted for your CV or for your cruisers, or even a battleship that's near you.
Right.
That's the
Not to
really
mention the
strong thing
fact that
about it.
if you've got a lightning or a Cossack, something with decent hydro, charging at you that will beat you in a gunfight, you also have 10 68 knot torpedoes that can go straight at them while they're charging you to try and close that gap. Correct?
Exactly, and you want to when using it against a DD like the Cossack or the Lightning that you know have hydro and who are going to try to hydro you back. I would wait till the last possible moment, like whenever they're about to get into the hydro range, or they're in hydro range and they're pushing you, but they're on an island or whatever. I would wait as long as possible, because if they're going to see those torps, right? When as soon as you fire them, So give them as little time as possible to maneuver and launch all of them. Just launch all of them and hope. And if you're really low on health, you just have to hope and pray that you're going to get them. But you should be able to see them the entire time before they see you, right? So you can get yourself out of those situations. But if you're really stuck, the torps are your saving grace because they will catch a lot of DDs out by surprise because they're so fast and they don't expect you to have those fast torpedoes because a lot of people run the 9.2s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brave thing to take the 6.7 kilometer torpedoes, but as we all know, that's what heroes do.
Yep.
So let me just ask you real quick before I throw it over to Synpax to pick your brain a little bit. Obviously, the issue when coming up against a battleship that itself does not have hydroacoustic search, the entire circumstance is a little easier, correct?
Yes. So you can just play with your concealment and get within like I typically like to get within 7 and then get up to about 6.2 to a battleship, especially if it's like a Massachusetts because I don't want to get caught with the secondaries. The Massachusetts secondaries will eat you alive, so you don't want to do that. But get within like 7 to 6.2 because if they're pushing into you, they're going to run into your torpedo range, and if not, you can just push a little bit more and torp them. But the 6.7s give you that breathing room of about 0.8 kilometers, 0.9 kilometers of torpedo range, right?
Right.
And you can utilize that. I mean, they go really fast, those torpedoes. Yes, they can miss at that range, especially if they're maneuvering hard or they're coming straight at you and they go left or right. So you want to wait as long as possible. I usually launch them at like 6.1, 6.2 kilometers away if they're coming towards me. So that and they're turning. That way I can catch them in the turn and full broadside, get 4 torpedoes into them and devastate them. The amount of devastating strikes you can get with these torpedoes is absolutely insane because they hit so hard. I mean, one torpedo does almost 17,000 damage. So, I mean, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, and even if damage saturation and torpedo belts cuts that damage down, there are still 10 of them.
There's still 10 of them, exactly. And they're pretty tight spread. They are pretty tight spread, to be honest with you. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, all yours, Synpax. Go for it.
So, why don't you tell us what? Well, first of all, let's establish the bona fides here. What is your status on the North American server and in this rank season in this ship?
In general, in ranks right now in Luoyang, I am at an 82.35% win rate, and I'm rank 7 right now. So I'm still trying to get my way down to rank 1, but I anticipate I'll be playing this for the foreseeable future, at least till rank 5, and see if the meta changes or anything like that. But for now, Luoyang is my ship. I got an 82% win rate in that in ranked. But in randoms, I believe I am number 85 PR in the world, and top 50 or something like that in win rate. And I just love that ship so much. It's like my baby.
So, particularly with rank, why don't you tell us what your captain build is?
Okay, for captain, I take preventative maintenance. I don't want to get my torpedoes or guns knocked out, especially in a night fight with another DD. I take adrenaline rush and last stand. I take superintendent because I get an extra smoke and an extra hydro. I take survivability expert, which gives you more HP, obviously. I take radiolocation, and I take concealment. The reason I take radiolocation instead of taking like BFT and another 1 point is because I want to go hunt other DDs down typically when I'm playing ranked. Because when in ranked, if you take out their DDs as fast as possible, you have a significant amount more chance to win that game versus where if the DDs are alive the entire game. So I like RPF just because I know where they're coming from, or if I want to hunt them down, I can easily find them.
So you're of the you come down to the PM side of the PT versus PM battle, huh?
Yes, because I assume if I'm in a DD, as soon as I'm spotted, I'm gonna have everything shooting at me. So it's preventative maintenance. It is.
Okay, very good. And do you run the unique commander, the unique Pan
I
Asian
actually
commander with
do
the
not
bonus?
have the unique command.
Oh
I actually
no,
do not have him, and I know the survivability expert gives you a little bit more bonus. I believe it's like that's a difference of like 500 HP or something like
it's
that.
an extra
So
50 points per tier.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I wish I had him. I don't think I ever got the opportunity to buy him. I don't know if he's still in the shop. I might have to look into buying him.
he
But
is available for call right now. Well, there are two of them, the Wong brothers, and one of them is I can't remember the circumstances of it, but the other one is definitely available for coal. So,
Yeah,
and
I'll
not a
have
lot
to
of
look into
people
getting
run.
them.
Yeah, well, not a lot of people necessarily even running around with a 19-point Pan Asian commander, but um, I think that's changing, especially given the strength of this shipping in ranked. So, um, I don't know. Is there any other advice you have to share with anybody who's picking this ship up? It's basically, fundamentally, it's a four-gun Benson,
Benson, yes.
right? With the
Um,
9.2 Benson torps, which we are kind of dismissing as a little slow, a little easy to detect, less effective than the shorties.
yes. So I would just say if you're thinking about buying the ship or you have the ship and you're struggling with it, being patient in the Loyang is the biggest thing. You don't necessarily have to just rush in and try to hydro some DD and catch them off guard, but just controlling a cap area and just denying that zone for your team and you're just holding it down the entire game is more than enough to win a game. I actually had a battle yesterday where I did 0 damage in ranked and I won the game by capping 2 caps. I hydroed a kid and a Benson in those cap and got them both killed by my CV because I had them under hydro and they were 2 separate caps. So I killed the kid first. We killed the kid first, and we went after the Benson. But I literally did 0 damage. Just my presence there killed 2 DDs.
Well, yeah, and that's a subtle thing to remember is that, um, I, well, it's questionable to try to depend on your teammates, but sometimes you just have to. Is that if you're
Yep.
close enough that the enemy ship is in your gunfire smoke detect range,
Hmm.
but you can count on your teammates to shoot them. Don't open your guns, and then guess what? Your detect range is 2.0, or if they're running Hydra, it's something. So even if they're close, you don't have to open up if you've got them, because that's a long Hydra that lasts like 2 minutes with the upgrade, right? Something like that.
It lasts with it lasts about 110 seconds, and I think you can get that even higher with the module.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
50% increase.
Hmm.
yeah, I don't have mine loaded here, but yeah, it's a long hydro, so you
Yep.
can be patient as long as that let's say your enemy DD is in smoke in a CV game. Either he's in hydro in his smoke and CV can wreck him, or he's and the rest of your team can, or he has to leave his smoke and then he can be spotted by something else. Um, the other strength of the ship to keep in mind is that as it is basically a Benson, a U.S. ship, it also has those ever so useful for teammates. U.S. smokes that last about
Yes,
two
two
minutes too.
minutes. Yes,
Yeah.
the 2 minute smoke is very key. It gets you out of a lot of sticky situations because you can just sit in there, especially if you're running low and the battle's coming to an end, but there's still a CV alive.
Hmm.
I had a game the other day where I was on about 1500 HP. The CV was hounding me the entire game, and we had finished everything else off except for the CV, and the points were really close. So I didn't want it to swing, and we had some low health ships. So I just sat in my smoke for the last 2 minutes of the game. I didn't have to do anything. I just used it, sat in it, and then kumbaya, really.
Yeah, and just since we were talking about it earlier, the duration with the upgrade, the hydroacoustic upgrade, is a grand total of 132 seconds of hydro. So
Hmm.
that's a long time to lock an enemy destroyer up on the
Yep.
other side of a tiny island inside of a cap.
Yep. And you also have the ability in the Roy Yang to effectively run away from a lot of other things because it does go about almost 40 knots. So it's pretty quick. It can get places. It doesn't have a speed boost because I think you have to give up hydro for the speed boost if I'm not mistaken, but you would never do that in the first place.
Or
But
you could also trade your hydro for defensive fire, but maybe not the best trade.
no, no, I wouldn't recommend it. Go for hydro and be very useful to your team. But yeah, it can get away from sticky situations because of its speed sometimes.
All right. Well, I think we've covered that, and I look forward to seeing a lot smarter plays and ranks among the Loyangs, and I believe this one's actually for sale now too in the shop, as many tier 8s are, as
Yep.
you'd expect. So I guess with that, I guess we're this one's in the can, eh, Bogsy? Do you want to go right
Yeah.
into plugs?
Yeah. Just one thing before we end this. This is this technically our second get to know a ship, or is this the first?
Oh, this
Are
is
you
the
counting
first. Oh,
the?
and oh, yeah, that's no first. But I have one thing to close this out with. But go ahead, go ahead. I'll do it when I do the plugs. But go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to say that we will be bringing Blitz back on at some point in the future to talk about another much loved and much maligned ship, which is the Yoshino, where I think as of this podcast, Blitz, you are is it your win rate or your PR that is #1 NA right now?
It's #1 in win rate, NA.
#1 win rate NA. We will bring him back to talk about the Yoshino in the future. We hope you guys enjoy this. This sort of I guess this sort of variety in the podcast. So yeah, with that's all I got, Synpax.
Yeah. So, if there's a ship in, by the way, if ever listeners are struggling with a particular ship or just can't seem to make it work, send us an email and we'll try to dig up, one of the best players in the world to come and talk about how they make it work on that particular ship. Our email address is thenewguyswows at gmail.com. That's thenewguyswows at gmail.com. Um, Plugs below, we will of course have Boggzy's Twitch stream and the link to the North American Clan Discord. Also, playing us out today. I keep forgetting. I want to play us out if we can with a song each time. Bogsy or Blitz, are either of you Blue October fans?
I don't know what that is, so I'm sorry.
Oh,
No?
I don't know what that is.
That's a band. Okay, so playing us out today will be Blue October's Into the Ocean, continuing with our WoW's themed outro music. Unless I forgot anything, Boggs, you want to take us home?
That's it, my man. This is the maiden voyage, so to speak, of the newly christened Get to Know World of Warships podcast. A short podcast hosted by Boggzy and Synpax, produced by TNG The New Guys. We have just hit episode 40. We are so grateful to all of you who have been consistently coming back and listening and enjoying it. We also appreciate everyone who has given us feedback, small, large, what have you. It helps us make this podcast better. It helps us know what direction we should be going in. And it also helps because we know that you're listening and you care. So keep it up. We appreciate it. Thank you, and we will see you next time.